Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tearing down something that touches literally every single transaction you make, yet is deeply, deeply misunderstood by almost everyone. We're going to explore exactly how the global banking system operates, and more importantly, where wealth actually comes from. Trust me, the answers are going to completely surprise you.
So, let's start off with a really simple question. Just think about it for a second. When you log in and look at your checking account balance, where did those digits originally come from? Did the government print them? Did someone else deposit them first? Well, I'm going to tease you right now. The real answer is totally counterintuitive, and frankly, kind of mind-blowing.
Section 1. The Great Banking Myth.
Okay, let's dive into this by dismantling the absolute biggest misconception out there. It's a myth so pervasive it's literally taught in textbooks. We like to call it the piggy bank illusion. You know the idea, right? You imagine that a saver walks into a bank, deposits $1,000 into a giant vault, and then the bank turns right around and lends that exact same $1,000 to a borrower who needs a mortgage. In this view, banks are just passive middlemen. They can only lend out pre-existing money. I mean, it makes logical sense, right?
Well, actually, scratch that. It's completely wrong. Here is the massive paradigm shift we need to make today. In reality, saving does not increase the funds available for banks to lend. It's exactly the reverse. Commercial bank lending actually creates deposit money. When a bank approves you for a loan, they aren't handing you someone else's hard-earned savings. They are literally conjuring brand new money into existence.
And hey, if you don't believe me, take it directly from the highest authority in the UK. The Bank of England unequivocally states, and I quote, "Rather than banks receiving deposits when households save and then lending them out, bank lending creates deposits." That single sentence right there, it completely shatters the whole intermediary myth.
Section 2. Fountain pen money creation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the reality of it all. If banks aren't lending out grandma's savings, how exactly does this new money suddenly get born into the economy? Think of it like a theater printing a ticket. That ticket didn't exist until you walked up and asked for a seat. It's the exact same for a bank's balance sheet. When a loan officer approves your mortgage, they don't jog down into a vault to fetch stacks of cash. They simply type numbers into your account. At the exact stroke of the banker's keyboard, a brand new asset, the loan, and a matching deposit are created simultaneously. New money literally appears out of nowhere.
Former UK Chief Financial Regulator Adair Turner hit the nail on the head when he described this. He stated that banks create credit and money ex nihilo. That's Latin for out of nothing. By simply extending a loan and simultaneously crediting a digital account, a commercial bank acts as a literal wealth creator. To put this all into perspective, we need to understand what broad money is. Broad money is basically the total amount of money held by all of us, households and companies alike. And here's the absolute kicker. 97% of all the money currently circulating in our modern economy, it isn't physical fiat cash printed by the government. No way. It is digital broad money that was conjured into existence by commercial banks when they issued loans. 97%.
Section 3. The Bank as Shopkeeper.
So, the crucial point is, if banks can just create money out of thin air, how does the business actually run without going totally bankrupt? Well, think of a commercial bank like your local retail shop. They have inventory on the shelves, right? For a commercial bank, their inventory is their active loans and investments, their earning assets. A shopkeeper pays the supplier for goods. A bank pays interest to depositors for the funds they hold. And just as the shopkeeper sets a selling price for a product, the bank charges an interest rate to its borrowers.
Just like that shopkeeper tracks their profit on every single item they sell, a bank has a very specific metric for this. It's called the net interest margin, or NIM. This is the exact profit margin a bank earns on every single unit of currency it lends out. It represents that absolutely critical gap between the interest they earn from borrowers and the interest they have to pay out to their depositors.
So banks have to meticulously manage their balance sheets, kind of like a super strict store manager. To survive and thrive, they need a healthy interest spread. If loan earnings rise faster than the cost of their deposits, they get a growing NIM and profits soar. But if deposit costs start rising faster than what they can earn on those loans, their NIM shrinks and the bank is in serious trouble.
Section 4. Limits on the magic.
Okay, logical next question. If banks can literally create money with a fountain pen, what's stopping them from just writing infinite loans to make infinite profits? Thankfully, there are strict speed limits on this magic. Banks are constrained by some heavy realities. First, competitive market forces. If they charge too much interest, borrowers just go to a rival bank. Second, credit risk. If they lend to everyone, borrowers default and the bank eats the massive loss. Third, liquidity risk. If depositors suddenly want to withdraw cash and the bank's money is all tied up in 30-year mortgages, they face a bank run. And finally, prudential regulation. Governments step in and force banks to hold a certain amount of capital reserves just to ensure stability.
But wait, because here is the absolute mind-bending flip side to this whole system. Just as taking out a loan creates brand new money, paying it back extinguishes that broad money from existence entirely. Seriously, if you buy groceries on a credit card, you are creating new money in the economy. When you pay that credit card bill at the end of the month, that specific money is literally destroyed and wiped off the digital balance sheets. It vanishes just as quickly as it appeared.
Section 5. Central Banks and Economy.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is if commercial banks are the ones creating 97% of the money, what exactly do central banks, like the Federal Reserve or the Bank of England, actually do? Well, interestingly, they don't control the exact quantity of money directly. Instead, they manage the price of money. By setting the policy rate, which is the interest they pay on the reserve banks hold with them, they influence every single other interest rate in the economy. This policy rate effectively dictates how profitable it is for commercial banks to issue those loans in the first place. So they're the ultimate speed regulators.
However, in exceptional circumstances, think severe financial crises when interest rates are basically sitting at zero, the central bank does have to step in directly. They do this through something called quantitative easing, or QE. Bypassing the normal lending route entirely, the central bank purchases assets, like government bonds, directly from non-bank financial companies, like pension funds. They pay for these by crediting the seller with newly created broad money, artificially injecting cash into the economy when commercial banks are too scared to lend.
To summarize this whole fascinating ecosystem, let's look at one final, simple analogy. Think of the entire economy as a massive farm. The central bank, they manage the weather. By tweaking interest rates, they decide if it's going to be sunny and favorable for borrowing or cold and restrictive. But the commercial banks, they are the ones actually growing the crops. They generate the 97% of broad money we use every single day to run our lives.
So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Hopefully, this explainer completely flips how you view your own daily actions. The next time you sit down to sign a mortgage, or even just swipe your credit card for a cup of coffee, ask yourself, are you just spending money from a piggy bank? Or are you, in that very fraction of a second, actually creating brand new money in the global economy? Thanks so much for joining me. Keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.